What if the most natural form of exercise isn't something you schedule, but something the human body was quietly expecting all along? Most people treat walking as the exercise you do when you're not really exercising. Too slow, too easy, not enough. But that assumption may have it completely backwards. Because walking doesn't just burn calories, it activates biological systems that were calibrated around this exact type of movement for thousands of years. And understanding why reveals something most modern fitness culture gets wrong. So what was the human body actually built to do all day? For most of human history, movement wasn't a workout, it was a condition. Humans walked to gather food, migrate, socialize, recover, and survive. Low-intensity movement happened for hours every day, not because people were training, but because that was simply how the body moved through the world. And because of that, multiple biological systems became dependent on regular movement signals to regulate properly. Circulation, glucose metabolism, lymphatic flow, digestion, joint lubrication, mood regulation, brain chemistry. The body didn't evolve around long periods of sitting, interrupted by short, intense bursts. That pattern is the opposite of what it adapted to. This is the first misconception modern fitness culture created. Exercise became something people do, but biologically, movement was originally the condition the body expected continuously. But here's where it becomes counterintuitive. Why does walking improve so many completely different systems at the same time? Because walking operates below the body's stress threshold. High-intensity exercise triggers strong stress responses, cortisol elevation, adrenaline, inflammatory signaling, recovery demand. That isn't bad in controlled amounts, but walking works through a completely different mechanism. Walking increases circulation without heavily spiking stress hormones. It improves insulin sensitivity without large recovery costs. It stimulates lymphatic movement without triggering systemic inflammation. Even the mechanics matter in ways most people never think about. The rhythmic contraction of the calf muscles during walking acts like a secondary pump for venous blood return, physically helping circulation move back toward the heart. Joint cartilage receives gentle cyclical loading. The spine experiences low-level mobility. Breathing settles into more stable rhythms. Research consistently shows that even short daily walks can meaningfully improve cardiovascular markers, metabolic function, and inflammatory response. With far lower recovery demands than intense training, walking doesn't improve one isolated system. It supports multiple regulatory systems simultaneously because the body evolved expecting this exact type of movement to happen repeatedly. And this is where the science becomes especially revealing. Walking doesn't just change the body, it changes the brain, and not in the same way intense exercise does. Walking increases blood flow to the brain while simultaneously lowering nervous system threat signaling. Studies show walking can improve mood regulation, stress resilience, working memory, creative thinking, and emotional processing. Part of this involves BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, a molecule involved in neural repair and cognitive plasticity. Walking consistently supports BDNF production over time. But there's another mechanism most people overlook. Slow rhythmic movement reduces hypervigilance. Visual flow changes. Breathing stabilizes. Sensory input becomes more predictable. The nervous system begins shifting out of constant alertness. This is why people often think more clearly while walking than while sitting still. It isn't random. It's neurological. For the brain, walking isn't just movement. It's one of the oldest regulatory signals the nervous system recognizes as safe. But one of walking's most powerful effects happens almost invisibly, and it starts within minutes of finishing a meal. Skeletal muscle acts like a massive glucose disposal system. During walking, muscles begin pulling glucose directly from the bloodstream for fuel. This helps stabilize blood sugar levels with almost no physiological strain. Studies show even a short 10 to 15 minute walk after eating can significantly reduce post-meal glucose spikes. And this matters far beyond diabetes. Blood sugar instability affects energy, focus, hunger signaling, inflammation, sleep quality, and long-term metabolic health. The modern body spends most of its time seated immediately after eating. That pattern is biologically unusual compared to the environment humans actually evolved in. Walking after meals isn't a wellness hack. It's closer to the movement pattern human metabolism originally expected food to be paired with. So why do so many people struggle to stay consistent with exercise even when they genuinely want to? Because many forms of modern exercise are biologically expensive. High-intensity training demands recovery capacity, adequate sleep, nutrition, joint resilience, stress tolerance, motivation. When any one of those is depleted, which in modern life is often, the system breaks down. Walking requires far less neurological resistance. It doesn't heavily deplete recovery systems. It doesn't require psychological ramp-up. It doesn't trigger strong avoidance patterns in the brain. And that matters because consistency drives long-term health outcomes more than intensity does for most people. The nervous system is far more likely to repeat behaviors that feel sustainable and non-threatening, even when those behaviors feel unremarkable. The best exercise for long-term biology is often the one the nervous system can repeat without constant internal resistance. And this is where modern life creates a biological problem the human body never fully adapted to. Sedentary behavior doesn't just reduce calorie burn, it removes regulatory input the body expects continuously. When that input disappears, circulation slows, muscle activity drops, lymphatic flow decreases, joint stiffness increases, insulin sensitivity worsens, stress regulation becomes less stable, mood shifts. Research links prolonged sedentary behavior with increased anxiety, depression risk, cardiovascular disease, metabolic dysfunction, and cognitive decline. Because biologically, inactivity isn't neutral. The body interprets prolonged immobility as a signal, not as rest. The human body wasn't designed for constant high performance, but it also wasn't designed for constant stillness. And modern life defaulted toward the one it handles worst. The deeper insight here isn't just about walking. It's about how modern humans fundamentally misunderstand what the body actually responds to. People often assume the body improves through extremes. Extreme effort, extreme discipline, extreme optimization. But many biological systems improve through rhythm, consistency, circulation, recovery, nervous system stability, and movement variability. The body is less like a machine being pushed harder and more like an ecosystem being regulated continuously. Walking reflects that perfectly. It's rhythmic, predictable, sustainable, low threat, repeatable. Because it feels ordinary, people underestimate how foundational it actually is. The body rarely depends most on what feels dramatic. It depends most on what happens repeatedly. Walking affects the body so powerfully because it aligns with movement patterns humans evolved around for thousands of years. It supports circulation, metabolism, brain regulation, stress recovery, glucose control, joint function, and nervous system stability, all without heavily overloading the body's recovery systems. That doesn't mean intense exercise is bad, but it does mean walking was never less important than those forms of movement. In many ways, it was the foundation underneath all of them. And in a modern world built around stillness, screens, and chronic overstimulation, walking may be one of the most biologically normal things a human body can still do. The body wasn't built to move hard occasionally. It was built to move gently, almost all the time.